I'm welcome Mandla Lishivha. I'm author of the upcoming Boy on the Run, and I'm a freelance journalist and author and an editor as well. Mostly did a lot of travel writing, but I've done a variety of stories in my writing career. Yeah, I've been writing since I finished my master's degree at Rhodes University in journalism and media studies. But I've also been writing all my life really because I've kept a diary. And yeah, it was that diary that saw me through some of the most really difficult, challenging moments. And some of them are shared in my book as well, verbatim from however many years ago. My book is a memoir, Boy on the Run, which has been really inspired by the tragedy of having witnessed my mom's death. When I was 12, I walked in on a scene where her boyfriend had shot her and shot himself, and both of them were lying on the floor in a puddle of blood. And she was 32, which is a year older than I am now. So even as a kid, I always knew her life was cut short, that it was a life interrupted, that she wasn't supposed to go. And I've always wanted to to put that down in writing, in story, in some way or another. I wanted to say, to honor her life. And so I wrote this book really to honor her life because it was a life cut short. And so I write, Boy on the Run is about how I have come into age and have grown up to be what I think is a wonderful adult, despite the tragedy of grief, despite what I witnessed. I committed to living a good life for her as well. So this book is about overcoming grief, and it's an ode to her and her life. And I wrote it to inspire many people because women are killed almost every other day in South Africa. And at most, people are hashtags, justice for so and so, justice for so and so. And it passes after a day or two. But the real stories are the damage that is left behind by these deaths. And my story is a way of saying this is what happens when we lose our mothers, our sisters, and our aunts. And this is the tragedy that we have to overcome. And I show my story of how I overcome it. But I hope that in people reading this book, men, women, queer people, I hope they're inspired and understand just how deep the femicide is in South Africa and its consequences and effects on young children especially. The most difficult part of writing this book was having to relive the tragedies, all the traumas. I have had to live almost every form of trauma I've gone through. Of course, the biggest trauma is the witnessing my mom's death or murder. And reliving that was very hard, and reliving my emotions around that, I think especially, was very hard because the incident is there in my mind, and it's been in my mind for the longest time and will be in my mind for the longest time. But it was hard to figure out how I really, to go back to that space and sit with how that made me feel, how her loss made me feel. There are parts of this book that I wrote entirely in tears, crying. There are parts that I wrote laughing, and some I pretty much almost could have written dancing as well. So it was a very necessary process for me to go through, as hard as it was. And also, I wanted to give my readers a very honest, a real, and authentic experience on the page. So that meant that I had to be very honest and real with myself. And I committed to doing that. And that was very hard, to really dig in and be honest about telling my story, how I felt at the time, even some of my shortcomings, I think come across in the book, and that was not easy to bear my soul and life story on the page like that. That was hard. My favorite book currently is When We Were Gods. It's a novel about Cleopatra. The first book that made me cry, it's a horse named Majestic. That's the name of the book. When I was very young, I read it. I think it's by Teresa Odendahl, and it's about this horse that goes on to become a famous racehorse and then lives through some difficulties and eventually is almost sent to the abattoir to be killed. And so that really made me cry, and it also inspired me a great deal. I would be rapping, which is still writing. My favorite writers: Virginia Woolf, Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, James Baldwin, John Keats. I can go on, but I'll keep it there for now. My role model growing up was Oprah Winfrey. I think she still is. She really is. I look up to her a great deal. The first thing I do every morning without fail is clear my desk. I have to make sure my desk is fresh for a new start. I feel most at home by the coast, strangely. I love water, I love the ocean, and that really makes me feel like I'm at home, but also with my friends. When I'm with my friends, I feel at home regardless of where we might be, especially my bestie, Mvuyo. I always feel at home with him. I have so many extravagance and I'm not scared to spend money. So I would have to say clothes, eating out, and gadgets. I love gadgets and I can't wait to get my new Apple Watch to go with my phone. This might be controversial, but I think humility is kind of overrated. I think I'd sometimes like to see people stand boldly into their truth and what they do. And I think the way we tend to overemphasize humility tends to prevent people from being bold and confident in their own skin. I do like people who are able to be vulnerable about their emotions, who wear their hearts on their sleeves, who say when they love something, when they don't love something, because I think often people who are able to be so easily vulnerable are honest and compassionate and kind people often. I would come back as a rapper or a queen of some nation. Anywhere by the coast or Europe. I love the architecture. I haven't been, but I love the architecture, the beautiful buildings. And I think, just that stunning architecture would suit my very stylish self very well. I was gonna say my mind, but I think it's my personality. I think because of the book I'm currently reading, and perhaps this is wishful thinking, but Cleopatra. She's a queen with foresight, and she's determined about what she does, and I like to think of myself as being the same. I'm actually so good at beading, at making beads. I think that's my other talent. More positivity. More positivity is always guaranteed to drown out the negativity, and I often tend to my friends to poetry, and there's so much positivity everywhere, but my friends and poetry are really some of my go-tos, because I'm guaranteed to feel good about myself, to be reminded of my beauty and power. I think I do say even in the book about some of my friends is that how they see, I can gain so much from seeing myself the way my friends see me. So I always go to them to be reminded of how loving, kind, and sweet I am, and that always drowns out negativity. It would be to keep going and to keep writing, I mean, I kept a diary, and even as I kept my diary growing up, I kind of always wrote it thinking that one day it would, reach many people and inspire them. So I've always kind of had that at the back of my mind, and I would tell my younger self to keep doing more of that, because the more I read some of those entries and my diaries, I'm inspired by my own voice. Talk about humility. I'm inspired by my own voice, and I would really encourage myself to keep going. And it's something I always encourage everyone every time I'm asked to even talk on writing. The first thing I say is keep a diary and write as much as you can. Not everything that you write has to be published. I once heard that, and that really changed my life. So my advice to my younger writing self would be to keep writing as much as possible.